So if you want to find out why new construction or resale may be better for you, we're going to get into all the details of the differences, the pros, the cons, the process, and everything you need to know about buying a home and which one may be best for you in this video. So thanks for checking it out. Let's get into it. So again, I am Tyler Martin with Living in Tyler, Texas. We are your real estate friend in East Texas. We want to help you answer any possible questions you may have about purchasing a home. In today's video, we're going to compare new construction versus resale. Which one may be a better fit? We're going to go into all the ins and outs of the process, ongoing maintenance, concerns, value, everything that you might need to know. So make sure you continue to watch as we get into it. Again, if you haven't already, we would love for you to subscribe to our channel so you can get all the newest videos about East Texas, the real estate process, and everything in between. And if you would, subscribe to notifications as well. Leave us a comment after the video if you have any questions. We would love to hear from you. Again, we have all our stuff in the banner to where you can reach us by email, phone number, whatever it may be. We would love to hear from you and again be your resource for all things real estate. All right, so let's get right into it. The biggest differences between new construction and resale. So when we talk about new construction, we're talking about a home that nobody has lived in. It has just been built, just finished by the builder, and it is brand new. When you talk about resale, it could be something that is newish, maybe a year or so old and has had somebody live in it. It could also be as old as 100 years old or even more. We don't have a lot of homes older than 100 years here in Tyler, but there are parts of the country where that, may fit. Anyway, all that is to say, a resale home is one that is not brand new, that has been lived in by somebody. So, understanding the difference, let's kind of talk about new construction first. Now, new construction in the terms of negotiating and kind of going under contract and getting that part figured out is a little different, a little more cut and dry than the process of negotiating on a resale home. And the biggest reason is, at least in our market, builders here are pretty particular. When they price a home, this is kind of what it sells for. There are instances where they will do price reductions or they will give concessions and things like that, but by and large, most of the homes, new construction anyway, here in East Texas or here in Tyler specifically, tend to be the price that you pay. And really, one of the biggest reasons they do that is because most builders, when they go into these communities and neighborhoods and things like that, they want to maintain the price integrity of the homes. So generally, the way real estate works is properties appreciate over time. So the reason they typically don't go down on price is because if they start to drop prices of currently built homes, it reduces the appreciation of those homes as they continue to build out the neighborhood. So a lot of times those numbers are very fixed. Now, that being said, there are ways to get a little bit more value on a new construction home. A lot of times they will offer concessions, which can kind of be used in a couple different ways, whether you use it for rate buy down, you can use it to reduce your closing costs and things like that, but it does give you some options to have a little bit of flexibility and negotiation in the process. Now, that process of negotiation is a little bit different because this is a business. They're a little, like I said, a little more cut and dry. They will say, this is the best we can do, take it or leave it. And unfortunately, that's not always the way people expect the process to go. So understanding that, kind of going into it, new construction, you just don't have as much wiggle room to be able to negotiate the price, will kind of help frame your perspective about looking at those homes. Now, there's always going to be exceptions with that. Typically, when I'm saying the builders don't want to negotiate, it tends to be the larger builders who go in and develop entire communities. We do have smaller builders who may build 5 to 10 homes a year, and they will have a little bit more wiggle room on those homes depending on how quickly they want to get them sold. So there are exceptions to that, but by and large, most builders have a little bit more fixed price in mind for the house. Now, when we're talking about resale homes, that process is a little bit different. There's a lot more emotion involved because the seller has great emotional tie to the home. They've been in it for however many years. They tend to actually value it, not surprisingly, more than other homes similar to that type of home, just because they've got a lot of sentimental attachment to it. So it can become a little bit more of an emotional process to negotiate that. However, there is in a lot of cases more room to negotiate. And because every transaction is kind of a one-off, the motivation of any one seller is going to vary greatly from property to property. You have some people who may be in very extreme circumstances where they need to sell the home a lot quicker versus somebody who's just testing the market and putting it at a crazy price just to see what happens. So understanding the dynamics of a resale home and that every transaction and every seller is very different will kind of help understand what the negotiation process is going to look like. But when comparing it to a new construction home, that process does have a little bit more wiggle room typically in terms of the price, especially in today's market once we've kind of moved beyond the multiple offer window that we had during COVID where everything just sold for, multiples over the asking price. But in this normal market that we're in right now, expect a little bit of room. I would say typically within 2 to 4% is somewhere kind of within the range of what you can expect to get the home for. Now, we don't always start our negotiations there, but that's kind of what we would shoot for, is to get the home within that range, assuming that the comps support the price that we're offering. Now, once you have the home under contract, it's two different processes between new construction and resale. Now, there are some new construction builders that will allow you to have an option period, which basically allows you to cancel for any reason in that window of time, usually 7 to 10 days in our market. And in that window, you can do whatever it is you need to do. You can actually cancel the purchase just because you don't want to live in that house anymore, or you don't like the color of the floors. It doesn't matter. For whatever reason, you have the right to terminate the contract for any purpose. Now, most builders, because the builder's contract that most of them use doesn't stipulate an option period. Once you sign the contract, it is a little bit harder to back out. So basically at that point, you're going to be a little bit more committed into purchasing the new construction home than you would a resale home. So if it becomes like an emotional decision, once you get into contract on the new construction, it does require a little bit more commitment to purchase that home than it would a resale home, in terms of the timing of when you can back out and that sort of thing. Now, in Texas, we are an as-is state, and our contract when purchasing a resale home has the option to check the buyer accepts the property as is or as is with certain repairs. And a lot of times we don't know what repairs to ask for ahead of going under contract. So we typically check as is, meaning that the seller does not have to make any repairs to the home that we ask for. Now, in my experience, most of the time they do allow you to make repair requests and that kind of thing and work with you because they are motivated in the same way to sell the home. Now, the reason they are willing to make those repairs is often because they know the buyer can cancel the contract and walk away from the property if they don't. So that window of time called the option period, that 7 to 10 day window like we talked about, where you can cancel the contract for any reason, allows the buyer to go in, get their inspections done, get a better understanding of the condition of the house, and make sure that it's what they're expecting. So a lot of times there's going to be things that are uncovered during the inspection period that we don't necessarily know of or we're not aware of during the contract writing process, and that's why we get the inspection. Because the seller, like we said, understands that the buyer can walk away, they are going to be accommodating of those requests most of the time, to an extent. Now, there's a bottom line at which, the seller is going to get to, and if the repair costs exceed that, they might just say no. Or they could compromise and do part of it and leave the buyer to cover the rest of it. I'll give you an example. More recently, we sent an offer in on a property for $325,000. We started at $275,000 with $9,500 in concessions. So it was basically almost a $60,000 discount to the buyer. We didn't go back and forth a lot. They came back to us with their best number at $300,000 with $9,500 in concessions. Well, we had seen the property and knew ahead of time that it was going to require foundation work. So part of the stipulation in the contract was that the foundation would be repaired ahead of closing. So we actually negotiated that amount and the repairs prior to closing. So we ended up what was a $15,000 bill to repair the foundation. It's going to increase it to $307,500 and give the buyer basically half of the cost to get the foundation repaired. The seller is going to take care of it, and the buyer is going to include that difference in the purchase price, so the seller's net is going to be the difference. Now, that's just one example. Very frequently, we always negotiate smaller fixes on a resale. I would expect anywhere at minimum to get $1,000 to $2,000 in repair requests taken care of. There's always some variation in that, and depending on how severe, it can actually be a lot more costly. I actually had 2 clients that are under contract to close this month. We negotiated new roofs for both of those properties. Now, roofs are a big deal here, and we'll get into some of that a little bit more in other videos, but having a new roof is drastically going to reduce the cost of your insurance, and it's going to determine whether or not you can be covered through insurance based on the age of the roof. So that's always one of the biggest and first things that I look at in a resale home is the condition of the roof. Additionally, when comparing resale homes, one of the things that I always look for is the foundation and the HVAC, because those are your biggest ticket items. Foundation can vary in price from $1,500 to $50,000 depending on the severity of the foundation issues. HVAC full replacement is going to cost $8,000 to $10,000. Maybe closer to $12,000 in some instances, depending on how big of a unit you're getting. But we do have ways to help kind of accommodate the HVAC cost through home warranties and things like that. So if we can get certification that the HVAC is working, we can kind of sometimes overlook age on those and just expect that it's going to be a cost in the future. Now, with new construction, it's a little bit different because there's really not the same wear and tear. All the appliances are new, the roof is new, so the big systems largely are intact. There will be some discrepancies occasionally in terms of how the builder built the house versus what an inspector expects the house to be. So they inspect under a national building code to where the builder's built under a separate building code that the city will sometimes inspect, but that discrepancy sometimes will lead to variations in what the expectations are for the finished product. So in the event that there are issues, you'll do what's called a punch list. We're going to go through the house, we're going to mark up any things that are missing, whether it be cabinets that don't open correctly, light bulbs that are missing, paint chips, anything of that nature, big or small. We're going to present that to the builder and ask them to repair it. They will typically take care of all of those defects. Additionally, most builders will take care of the length of all the issues brought up in an inspection report, unless there is a discrepancy in which the builder thinks this is the best way to build or this is the way they build their stuff because it's how the city inspects it. There will be, like I said, some level of discrepancy in that, but largely builders will take care of the entirety of the list of concerns. So when buying a new home, you're going to get it in perfect condition essentially. However, I've never seen a new home that is perfect. You're always going to have some small level of defect, and because of that, we go to the builder to ask what they're willing to repair. Now, when we're looking at the pros of new construction, these are the ones that I think are the biggest. So when we're looking at the pros of new construction, to me, these are the greatest values that you're going to get when purchasing new construction. You're going to have the most up-to-date finishes, colors, counters, flooring, lighting, all of that kind of stuff is going to be up to date with new market trends. So there's not going to be anything that you're really going to need to go in and change when you move into the home. You're going to have what's in style, and it's going to give you a little bit of peace of mind that you don't need to constantly be making upgrades and things of that nature. Additionally, because the home is newer, the risk for an insurance claim is much smaller, and because of that, your insurance is going to be lower with a new construction home. So when purchasing a new construction home, you're going to offset some of that cost that you're paying additionally for the home in a lower insurance rate. Additionally, because they're all very new and much more efficient in terms of utility usage for energy, water, things like that, you're not going to have as high of a utility bill monthly because there's just not going to be as much leaking of the air, the warmth, whatever. So your furnace and HVAC and things like that are not going to have to work quite as hard to keep the home comfortable, and because of that, lower energy bills. So continuing with some of the cost saving features of a new construction, we're going to also have lower utility cost because the home is more efficiently sealed. The units and things like that, your HVAC, your furnace, are going to work just better because they're newer. You're going to have lower energy costs throughout the year, and that's also going to help offset some of that higher price that you're paying for a new construction home. So when it comes to the negative of new construction homes, the biggest one is going to be price. You're going to pay the highest end price per square foot that you will see largely in the community, and it's just because that's what new construction costs. It's the top of the market. I'd say most new construction, with some exception to the very high end stuff, it's gonna be around $215 to $220 a foot here in Tyler, to where the average resale home is probably going to be $150 to $175, somewhere in that neighborhood. So you're going to pay a lot more per square foot at a new construction home than a resale home. Additionally, a lot of the newer construction homes don't have great yards. A couple reasons for that. One, they tend to be on smaller lots because it's cheaper for the builder. They can build more of them to make more money, and that's just how it works typically. There are obviously exceptions to that, to where you can move into a new construction home with a bigger lot, but they are a little bit more scarce than some of the others. The other part, the reason the lot is just not in as good a condition, is because it's new. You just finished up a construction site to where they've got less progress on the yard, and building a beautiful yard and things like that take quite a bit of time, from maintaining the grass, the landscaping, and all that they just don't invest in that with new construction. So you're going to have smaller and lesser developed yards with new construction. Now, when we get into resale, we're going to talk about the pros first. Basically, you're going to get more value typically. You're not going to pay what a new construction home costs, even for a fully renovated home. Now, there's going to be a lot of varying prices and things like that based on where the home is located, to where new construction is a little bit more uniform throughout the city. It's hard to find any new construction less than $200 a foot, whether it's in North Tyler, South Tyler, West Tyler, whatever it may be. It's going to kind of be in that range, to where the discrepancy in pricing in resale homes is going to be all over the place. It's hard to find anything less than probably $125 a foot that's in good shape and largely livable, but you can be from $125 up to $205, $210, depending on the extent of the renovations or the finishes and things like that of the home. So what resale provides you is a little bit more value. Additionally, older homes have more charm. They've got a little bit more character. Some of the finishes and things like that are going to be a little bit different than what we see in most standard new constructions, with a big open concept, split floor plan, and just some variation of that. Older homes will have a lot more charm with hallways, details in terms of, woodwork and things like that, just because it's cheaper to build homes without those features today, and because of that, builders typically look at the bottom line. So if they're trying to make a new construction home, they're going to try and cut costs and things that don't really matter to buyers that much. Additionally, when purchasing a resale home, you're going to get the benefit of an established neighborhood. So if you like going to neighborhoods with trees, big yards, and just a little bit more variation and growth in that kind of way, specifically to landscaping, resale homes are going to be better for that. New construction, they typically, when they're building and developing a neighborhood, have to clear everything out to be able to build those homes. So you don't have the 50 or 60-year-old trees lining the streets. You don't have all the beautiful landscaping around the houses and things like that, or to the same extent that you might in other communities and neighborhoods, just because it's a lot newer, and the time it takes for landscaping and trees and things like that to develop in communities just takes a really long time, and new construction communities don't typically have that. Now, some of the cons with resale homes are twofold. A lot of times condition is not always great. So sometimes you're purchasing a home that you're going to have ongoing repairs. You will have that even with newer construction ultimately, but sometimes those repairs are going to occur more frequently in an older home. Additionally, the finishes and touches and things like that may be a little bit more out of date than what you're expecting. So in a resale home, you might have to, make changes over time to paint, to flooring, countertops, bathrooms, things like that as you're able, to where when you're moving into a new construction home, those things are already taken care of for you. Now, there are obviously going to be examples where this is not the case, where you've got a fully renovated resale home. And a lot of times those are really great deals. You get more square footage for less money. You get a fully renovated home. You get a home that's a little bit different than your neighbors in terms of the floor plan, the layout, the finishes. And personally, that's something to me that I always kind of like. I don't necessarily like to have a very cookie cutter type home. And because of that, resale may offer a little bit more flexibility and choice for that reason. Now, when thinking about purchasing a new construction home or a resale home, there's a lot of variables to consider. My most recent purchase was actually a new construction home, and we love it. It's floor plan, while maybe smaller in square footage than what we would get in an older home, about 2,350 square feet. We've got a very efficient floor plan to where it fits all of our needs, to where if we got into an older floor plan with maybe more hallways and doorways and things like that, that same 2,350 square feet would need to be closer to 2,500 or 2,600 square feet. So you do get a more efficient floor plan sometimes with new construction homes. But it is a very personal decision. Where your preference lies, where your budget lies, is largely going to dictate what type of home you look for. There are absolutely pros to both of them, and there are cons to both of them. New construction, the biggest con just being price. You're paying the top of the market, to where the biggest pro is just going to be everything's brand new. Your maintenance costs are going to be lower. Your finishes are going to be up to date, which is, just brings you some peace of mind that there's not going to be a lot of upcoming projects in the future. To whereas resale, a lot of times you can have, in some instances, a blank slate to make the home whatever it is you want, because you're paying a lot less for it. You're getting more value. And if space is a big consideration for you, a resale home is probably your best bet to get the space for your money. Additionally, your yards are often a lot bigger and that sort of thing. Some of the cons are you are going to have more maintenance issues arise more frequently and faster in a resale type home. Additionally, your insurance costs are typically higher as well. Now, one of the biggest caveats to that is being able to get a new roof for your home. It's not always easy to do. It has become a little bit more difficult with the rate and frequency that people are changing roofs here. However, if you can get a new roof on your home, it is going to drastically drop the insurance on your resale home. So thanks for checking out our video. I hope this was helpful when considering the benefits of a resale versus a new construction home. There is no right answer to it. There's a lot to consider, and you're just going to have to prioritize those things that are most important to you, whether it be finishes, location, size, and all those things are going to be unique to every buyer. So I hope that this again was helpful. We would love to be your East Texas real estate resource. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Like the video if you found it useful. Leave us a comment, give us any feedback that you have on whether or not you prefer new construction or resale, and we will see you on the next video.